quite a police presence here outside court. And I imagine as well, from your position, Liema, as you join those EFF supporters as they make their way from the stadium here to the East London Magistrates Court. How's that going?
Absolutely, Michelle. In fact, we are also hearing the police chopper above head, which simply indicates that then it means we are in close proximity to where you are at. Currently on the Cambridge Street, we have just passed then the City Hall here of the Buffalo City Metropolitan Municipality, and quite notably there, we are also seeing some of the spectators in and around here, the town of formerly known as East London, now Kukompo City, also watching as that march heads towards the East London Magistrate Court. Many of them also hooting some of their vehicles and them shouting in support of the march which is currently underway here. But it seems as though then that in no moment from now we are in fact going to get closer and closer as we inch towards the last robots here before we head to the vicinity then of the East London Magistrate Court. I am imagining then at the top of my head that our estimated time of arrival, depending of course on the pace of the marches right behind us, as you can see from your screen, we should be well on the vicinity of the East London Magistrate Court in about 4 minutes or so from now, as we continue to track then this march that is being led by the various officials of the economic freedom fighters, as you can see from your screen right now, all of them coming from the Jan Smuts Stadium where they held the night vigil throughout from last night at about 6 or so p.m. in the evening right up until this morning. As we've also seen, interestingly, Michelle, that some of the members which have descended from various parts of the province of the Eastern Cape arriving shortly in the morning today there at the Jan Smuts Stadium, joining some of the already existing members that were there. Majority of them last night, we know of course they are from the Youth Command wing of the Economic Freedom Fighters. I mean, just some of the wording that we've since been hearing from the members right behind is that of they are, adamant in the fact that they will support their party leader no matter what happens, irrespective of the outcome that should be handed down in about a day or so from today here at the East London Magistrate Court. That is when then they will decide what should happen from there going forward. Of course, the Secretary General Marshal Dlamini addressing some of those members earlier on before they started to embark on this march, telling them there that their main mandate is that of heading to court simply to show solidarity to their party leader, and that if the outcome is not that which they are in fact anticipating or that they want it to be, that is when then they will decide what should happen. And of course this has caused widespread concern, especially among some of the spectators as well, including us as the members of the media, as it pertains to safety concerns should the outcome be not favorable to some of those supporters and members. But again, nothing official to that regard. We have been hearing from the officials just some rhetoric that has been passed around. It's going to be interesting then to see, Michelle, as we inch closer and closer now, passing those last robots that I mentioned earlier on, before we enter the vicinity of the East London Magistrate Court. What this day will turn out to be, that is one that will be interesting for us to watch. In about 2 minutes or so, we should be arriving at the vicinity of the court, East London Magistrate Court here in Kukompo City in the Eastern Cape. We are moments away before our arrival, Michelle.
Yes. All right, welcome back, and thanks for staying with us here. 12 minutes after 8 o'clock, we're still at our live position outside the East London Magistrates Court, and quite a bit has happened from this little table that we've set up outside court. We've gotten to speak to the National Prosecuting Authority ahead of what really is a seminal 2 days for the EFF and undoubtedly for the NPA as well. We've also spoken to the EFF's national spokesperson. So let's give you some analysis now on what these conversations have told us. Ungama Mtimka is our political analyst joining us here outside the East London Magistrates Court. Ungama, interesting to say the least. Shall we begin with what the NPA had to tell us just some moments ago about the fact that it is quite confident that it's brought a fair case and this decision to pursue the maximum 15-year prison term in this case. Part of what the NPA says is that Julius Malema's demeanor in court, how he behaved in court, the constant denials that it was in fact a rifle that was used, insisting it was a toy gun, showing a real lack of remorse, and that influencing the NPA's decision.
Yeah. So this is the unfortunate thing about power, is it corrupts and corrupts. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. Obviously, Julius Malema is not in power as far as national office is concerned, at the level of the state. But he's done quite well for himself and his party, built an organization outside the ANC that brought accountability in parliament at a time when the ANC had party dominance that was rampant and unchecked. So he built that power. Now the challenge is...
perhaps we've forgotten about that, haven't we?
Yes. Well, as it happens, we're human. But the problem is that when you are able to affect a political system like that, that can get into your head sometimes. And it requires a significant degree of self-control and humility, like Madiba bringing himself before the courts, in order for you to master the dance between a very powerful person whose power is bequeathed by institutions and a person who knows that they have to remain humble in relation to the very same institutions. Otherwise, the integrity of the bigger system becomes, undermined. So I think that that's what the NPA is taking exception to. Even if you've built a power base that's become useful for the country at some point, you have to navigate, you have to remain humble in relation to the institutions that make up the fabric of our political system. Otherwise, we don't have a country. I mean, a banana republic begins when a state cannot actually instill the fear of God upon the population, as it were.
The other thing, and I think, it's easy to get lost in all of the headlines, but there are so many positives when it comes to the EFF and the party pushing for accountability. And one thing that comes to mind is the Phala Phala judgment that we've still been waiting for from the Constitutional Court. And the EFF really, to my knowledge, Ungama, you'll correct me if I'm wrong here, but it's a party that has kept its finger on that story. Mind you, we don't discuss the reasons now and the political expediency behind their insistence that the Constitutional Court release its findings. But the party has kept its focus on that story.
It has. And secondly, it's a party that's kept a focus on the grievances that the majority of South Africans are facing. Landlessness, poverty and unemployment. Yes, you hear the mainstream parties focus on those things, but the EFF has been able to build a political program around those issues.
And Ungama, as you and I are speaking, I'm sure you can also hear very well the crowds that are now making an approach to the East London Magistrates Court. Quite a large police contingent ahead of the crowd, and supporters certainly, as promised by the EFF, arriving in their numbers. And I'm hoping that we can bring our viewers that picture of a sea of red, really making an approach to the court. These live pictures coming to you from our position on the ground there with those supporters. Ungama, it's a sight to behold, and if this doesn't talk to the level of support that Julius Malema will have today, nothing does.
Yeah, and also, Michelle, we've had this uncomfortable relationship between politics and law in South Africa, where from the Jacob Zuma years, when somebody is appearing before the courts on charges that have got merit on their own, that people would mobilize, politicians would mobilize outside the court. And you could read it in many ways. One is support, which is ordinary. But in other ways, it's actually an intimidation of the judicial system of the country. I mean, I'm looking at the heavy police presence and the security.
Right behind you, in fact.
And it's equal to the task because you've got this, mobilization.
Yeah, and we're about to be engulfed by the sea of red here. But as you say, Ongama, absolutely. Is it support? Is it an intimidation of the court process? I suppose that is up to the way that you interpret it.
Yeah, I think it has to be read both ways. It has to be read both ways.
And there we go. Members of the EFF, supporters of the party, really descending on the East London Magistrates Court this morning. We've got, I think it's a relatively small police contingent. I'm not sure that this is going to be enough. I think I counted about 10 or 12 police officers, and there are quite a number of supporters.
You're right, and I hope that they are able to contain these crowds. I see the water is at the water tanks or cannons getting close. It's really something that's of concern.
Yeah. So does this translate, in your view, to support for the EFF? Do these crowds talk to electoral numbers for the EFF?
Sorry, talking?
Do the crowds talk to electoral numbers for the EFF?
Oh, sure. Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. I think that what we are going to see is the broad trend of an EFF that's facing electoral decline. I can boldly say that is going to be the case on the basis of the uncertainty as far as leadership is concerned. Secondly, on the impact of the splinter party of Maibuya.
Yeah. So shall we talk about what the EFF spokesperson had to say to us earlier? And the question I posed to the spokesperson, Temi Msane, was, is there a plan if indeed this decision does not go the way of Julius Malema, for who might lead the party in his place? And she said no.
Yeah, it's interesting. Perhaps in Julius Malema's inner circle, there could be a plan. But Julius is not that type of a leader who is going to affirm people and give them defined roles should he not be there, because he doesn't envisage himself not being there. The prudent thing to do would have been to actually have that plan so that if the proverbial hits the fan, the party is able to continue. But if you look at what's happened to the party in the last 18 months, Julius Malema has made sure that there is no leader within the EFF who's got the security in terms of his own or her own perception of the support of the rank and file membership, who would take over from him. Now, that creates a situation in which, even in an instance like this, a crisis like this, Julius Malema is unlikely to face an internal rebellion that pushes him out as a result of a conviction or the sentencing.
And I mean, that person that you're describing is possibly someone like Floyd Shivambu, possibly someone like Mbuyiseni Ndlozi.
It could definitely have been a Floyd Shivambu who would be thinking about, one, the political capital he had in the organization, having been in charge of deployment and the administrative machinery of the state. Also, so Floyd could actually do that, even to the extent of pushing or compelling Malema to resign in the interest of the party. I think Mbuyiseni would linger, waiting for an opportunity to take over, should it go. But I don't see him as somebody who would have had the political capital to trigger a resignation, for example.
I mean, the other question, of course, is the EFF is putting all its eggs in the basket of an appeal. Depending on which way the court decides, there is the option to appeal. You'll explain the process to us maybe a bit better, Ongama, but the court needs to grant leave to appeal, right? The second thing is, depending on the sentence, if indeed it's 12 months or above, it does mean that Julius Malema will lose his seat in Parliament as a lawmaker, even pending those appeals. So yes, you certainly have plans to appeal, and that is all good and well, but while the court's decision is in place, you will be removed as an MP.
Yes, and here is what becomes interesting for me. Remember that the decision resides with this court whether to grant that leave to appeal. So they would have to petition a higher court if they do not get joy from this court. So their strategy today is that they are waiting in the high court as we speak, so that if they don't get joy here, they are able to lodge that appeal in the higher court
immediately.
Which I think, so we mentioned about the undermining of courts or intimidation, but you've got to also appreciate how South African politicians understand the court system and also do lend themselves to actually playing with the rules of the court and seeking to get recourse from it. So I was quite happy to hear that as part of their strategy is to explore the means that are available in the court system in South Africa. That does speak volumes about the confidence that they have, at least in the system, even if sometimes they take swipes at the judiciary.
Yeah, I have to as well just say that the NPA must surely still be bruised from certain decisions that haven't gone its way, its lack of prosecutions in state capture cases and the like. The NPA must surely be certain of its case. All of those T's must be crossed, all of those I's must be dotted for you to be able to say, this is the court's decision, and there are no grounds for appeal. We have done our work.
Yeah, by the way, they've left a vulnerability in this case. And I don't know whether it was a matter of legal strategy, as Julius Malema is alleging, to not bring the person to whom the alleged gun was signed on that day, and use Snyman and charge Malema with Snyman. Now, the interesting thing that I heard from legal fundis is the vulnerability of this judgment to the aspect of the state's case that relates to where Malema got the gun, and which, by the way, has been proven to have been fired, a real gun based on ballistics
The bullet
assessment.
casings were found.
So, but the vulnerability is on the process of having the gun to Julius Malema. And it seems as though some legal fundis are of the view that that leaves vulnerability enough for the state's case to be challenged.
Well, that's certainly very interesting indeed. Ungama, thanks for staying with us here. Don't go anywhere. We're not going to let you go just yet. We are live here outside the East London Magistrates Court. Perhaps I can just also comment, Ungama, from our position here, I did think that the crowd was quite big. And I wonder whether our cameras can give us a sense, because obviously crowd control outside the court is for a certain number of people, but I see behind our camera the numbers may be much bigger than we are able to see from our position. So when we say a sea of red, is it a sea of red? Quite possibly so. Quite a tight grip on security here, I would say. A number of police officers, I think 10 or 12, we might need more police officers deployed here for crowd control, just given the EFF numbers. But certainly quite a groundswell of support for the EFF leader, Julius Malema. Our reporters, Liema Vumisa and Sipa Kema, are also at various vantage points of this show of support for Julius Malema. Excuse me while I just take a look around and give you a sense of what else we're seeing out here. But it does appear that, buses have come in, no doubt carrying supporters. They're parked to the left of your screen. To my right, I think more police officers are parked roundabout that way. If Ndu can swing the camera that way as well and give us a sense of some of the numbers. I'm actually going to get up from my chair, from where I am, stay where you are, Ngama.
sure.
I'm going to try and get us a sense of the numbers here. Yeah, I think certainly not. The numbers certainly are not going all the way down the road, which is what I expected initially. What I thought would be the case is that the EFF numbers we're seeing here in front of us might be increasing somewhat to the back of that picture, but that is certainly not the case. The numbers really are concentrated to what you can see here towards the front, and then what you are able to see on this camera. I think Julius Malema arriving here at court outside the East London Magistrates Court in his security vehicles. Let's just stay with this picture and give you a sense of what we can see at this point.
I'll open for you.
Liema Vumise is our reporter who's also on a different angle of the story. Liema, what do you see?
Yeah, absolutely, Michelle. I am seeing Godrich Gadi, who is the Deputy President of the Economic Freedom Fighters, being greeted there by Marshal Dlamini, the Secretary General. I'm assuming those are some of the bodyguards that have also arrived here at the East London Magistrate Court. So that is the Deputy President, Godrich Gadi, arriving at this moment, as you can see from the picture that we are giving you, with some of the legal representatives, I'm assuming, of Mr. Julius Malema. So that is, as we continue to track the arrival and await really the anticipation of that arrival of the party leader himself, that is Julius Malema, to arrive here at the East London Magistrate Court. As you can see, some of the members as well of the Economic Freedom Fighters are gathering here by the entrance of the Magistrate Court as they anticipate the President of the Economic Freedom Fighters to arrive at any moment right now. Heavy police presence here, and some of the bodyguards that are deployed by the Economic Freedom Fighters as they try to make their way. This is the entrance then that the motorcade of Julius Malema will be arriving right closer to the entrance of the East London Magistrate Court. Michelle, let me take it back to you from your vantage point.
Guys, let's move back. Let's move back. There's nothing happening now. Let's move back, please. Please, close. Next page. Move back.
Sorry.
I'm going in. But didn't say. No, I'm going in.
Thank you.
He was here with some of his family members. That is Julius Malema. There I can see to my far left some of the officials there. That would be the top six. Leanne Matthys, the Deputy Secretary General, alongside the National Chairperson, together with the Secretary General there. They are anticipating their party leader, Julius Malema's arrival.
We know the case was brought by National Forum, and again, that also just items that talk about political prosecution. mentioned the case of political persecution.
Of course, still trying to see. I do see a vehicle that is arriving here. It could potentially be the president of the Economic Freedom Fighters. Not quite sure, but by the look of things, also with some of the top officials already waiting for his arrival. We're just waiting then to see who will come out of this particular vehicle. You'd know that Deputy President of the party as well, Godrich Gadi, did in fact make his way using this very same entrance. Any moment now, we can expect that the president of the party should be arriving. Not sure who that is at this moment. Of course, this is just on what I would have mentioned earlier. Expecting. All right, that is the wife then of the president of the Economic Freedom Fighters, Miss Mantwa, arriving here as well for the pre-sentencing of Julius Malema. His wife arriving right now, being greeted, of course, by some of the top 6 of the Economic Freedom Fighters. She is arriving, I beg your pardon, alone, so I'm anticipating that we should be seeing another vehicle then that will also make its way here to this particular entrance. They're also being greeted by the top 6, as previously mentioned, the Treasurer General, the National Chairperson, the Deputy Secretary, the Secretary General as well, and some of the senior members of the Economic Freedom Fighters that are present. You'd recall then that moments, or rather in the previous hearing that was occurring here, there seemed to be a bit of tension at this entrance as far as the arrival of the president of the Economic Freedom Fighters, with some of the members really eager, wanting to greet him, and thus causing a bit of commotion here at this entrance. But if you can be able to see then that there are some of the SAPS members that are here to ensure that they try to keep everything calm. There you see Kenin Chwaku, the head of elections of the Economic Freedom Fighters, as they head to the elections this year. Of course, being present here as well to ensure that they all, as the senior members of the Economic Freedom Fighters, show their solidarity as they have been preaching to so do. Again, on the far side, this side of the entrance, I am seeing I would assume is the Central Command team members, Hlengwe Mkalipi alongside Veronica Mente, also arriving here to greet the President, Julius Malema. There we see another vehicle there approaching, which I am not quite at a privileged point of view to spot who might be behind, but it seems as though it is just one of the vehicles that was here earlier on passing by. So that is what the situation currently is here at the East London Magistrate Court outside here in the town of Gugompo City in Eastern Cape, anticipating the arrival of Julius Malema, the president of the Economic Freedom Fighters, as he is set to, attend the proceedings as it pertains to his pre-sentencing hearing. That is expected to also take 2 days, starting from today, Wednesday, at 9 o'clock, right up until tomorrow, Thursday, towards the end of the day, as we are building up, of course, to that much anticipated verdict as it pertains to whether or not is it going to be direct imprisonment, is it going to be a fine. But what we know so far and for certain is that irrespective of whatever the outcome will be, the President, Julius Malema of the Economic Freedom Fighters, stating there that they will in fact be appealing that decision. We anticipate then that some of the legal representatives are also going to gather at the Bishop High Court in anticipation of that outcome of his pre-sentencing hearing. That is what the situation is currently here, as we are still waiting then for Julius Malema to arrive, as the members continue to chant songs in anticipation of his arrival.
Of course, as we're seeing the live visuals still outside the East London Magistrates Court in Gugompo City in the Eastern Cape. as the leadership awaits the arrival of the leader of the EFF, Julius Malema, who was found guilty of unlawfully discharging a firearm during the party's 5th birthday rally. The pre-sentencing proceedings, all those will be watching out for. My colleagues, Michelle Craig Sipakema, as well as Liema Vumisa, all in attendance this morning to give us a rounded preview of proceedings and how those are faring so far. Of course, very important to note that the full 15-year sentence is what the National Prosecuting Authority is vying for, considering that he was found guilty on those 5 charges, was Julius Malema as well. And he has said he will continue to fight this no matter what. I believe my colleague Michelle Craig is indeed ready now as well and joins us again. And I guess, Michelle, it's the crowd still who, as you said a little bit earlier, maybe anticipating a slightly larger crowd, but not necessarily so this morning, but still those in attendance still very, very fervent in song.
Arabile, good morning. We're always ready, Arabile. What was happening was we were trying to make our way through the crowd here outside the East London Magistrate Court, and what a journey it's been. You can see from our live shot that we're bringing you that there is a bit of a cordon happening in preparation for the EFF leader Julius Malema's vehicle to arrive here outside court. You can see the leadership of the EFF with their branded T-shirts, hands off CIC, all gathered here at the entrance to the court. And many people, I would say scores of people in their EFF regalia lined up here outside court in anticipation of the arrival of Julius Malema. His wife arriving on the scene, his legal team arriving just a short while ago as well, and now we wait for Malema himself. We know that this is an incredibly important day, one of 2 days for the economic freedom fighters. You can see that there's also a police chopper flying overhead. We've got quite the police presence here outside court as well to try and keep control of the crowds. I see the EFF itself has people to try and do a level of crowd control. They are dressed in their army gear, their army colors, and they are also doing their part to keep control of the crowd. Important day, as we said, for the EFF leader. We've spoken to the EFF's national spokesperson this morning. And I must just say, can I apologize to our viewers for the at times shaky shot? But really this is the cost that we have to bear of trying to bring you visuals from right inside the court, right inside the crowd here outside court, and it is a bit of a push and pull at times. So we've spoken to the National Prosecuting Authority, we've spoken to the EFF's national spokesperson who says they are ready. In fact, the EFF is primed and ready at the High Court to lodge an appeal should it come to that, and it does appear that it most likely will come to that. Of course, insofar as an appeal is concerned, it is up to the court handing down the judgment to grant leave to appeal. If not, the party will then approach higher courts, and that will of course be the High Court, because we're at the East London Magistrates Court. The NPA, for its part, telling us that it is quite certain of its case. It's given us, it's done its part insofar as ballistics testing is concerned. The bullet casings, the gun itself, even though it did take some time to get all of that information, it does now have its ducks in a row. All right, while we put our camera to a ground position, because I don't think it's feasible for us to hold it up in the air the way we've been doing, my poor cameraman doing his best to bring us the very best picture that we can bring you here. You can see that we are also being controlled by the crowd here. Let's take you now to my colleague, Liema Vumisa, who has a slightly different and, in fact, a moving picture for us from the crowd here outside the East London Magistrates Court. Liema, it's over to you.
Yeah, that's right. But, Michelle, these are just some of the members that have also gathered here as they are anticipating the arrival then of the party leader Julius Malema to make his way any moment from now. As you can see, some of them are still singing. They don't seem to want to talk to us, but as you can see, those are just some of the people that are arriving. I would assume that they form part of the entourage of the president of the party, who is going to arrive again any moment from now, as we are trying to give you a different vantage point to that of my colleague Michelle, who is just by the entrance of the East London Magistrate Court. In fact, we are going to be able to catch that motorcade any moment from now as it is going to appear. I do see some of the senior officials as well. That looks to be the chairperson from KwaZulu-Natal for the Economic Freedom Fighters, but not quite sure that it is him for certain. But yeah, that is what the situation is right now. Again, the members and supporters are still continuing to chant the various songs as they anticipate that arrival of Julius Malema. Already know then that the top officials, top 6 of the Economic Freedom Fighters have already gathered just outside the entrance here of the East London Magistrate Court as they wait for him to arrive any moment. We've also seen then the wife of the leader of Economic Freedom Fighters, Ms. Mantua, also arriving here alongside some of the family members that I was able to spot there, anticipating that arrival once again. Let me bring it back to you then, Michelle, for now.
Lema, thanks for that different vantage points from where we are. The EFF is primed and ready for the leader, Julius Malema, to arrive here outside the East London Magistrates Court. This is somewhat of a cordon that has been blocked off not only by members of the SAPS who are performing crowd control, but also the EFF's own contingent of people who are controlling the crowd. You can see that the leadership, the spokesperson of the EFF, Sinau Tambo, is there, hands off CIC is the T-shirt that they are all wearing. Leanne Matthews, who sits next to Julius Malema in the ad hoc committee, which is investigating allegations of criminal infiltration of the SAPS. Well, we know that that committee is now drawing up its report with sessions having ended. So, I mean, he should arrive on the scene, Arabile, at any moment now. Court does begin at 9 o'clock sharp, and certainly we will be here outside the East London Magistrates Court for what will be an incredibly important 2 days for the economic freedom fighters, for the party itself, and for the party's election fortunes. It does appear, as Sinau Tambo tries to rile up the crowd here outside the court, that Julius Malema may well now be moments away from arriving. So perhaps we'll stay with this picture, perhaps let it breathe for a moment, give you a sense of the energy that we're seeing outside court this Wednesday.
And it is this level of excitement then and support for Julius Malema that has continued from day one of these proceedings, and ones that we will continue to follow, ones we've been continuing to follow, of course, since the case started until that ruling was also handed down, in which the leader of the Economic Freedom Fighters, Julius Malema, was found guilty in that firearm discharge case stemming from that 2018 birthday celebration of the Economic Freedom Fighters happening in Mdantsane in the Eastern Cape. So Kukompo City plays her host then today to this, where you're seeing EFF members there in song and dance, in seeking then to kind of understand a sense of what could possibly come next. Of course, these pre-sentencing proceedings are set to kick off at 9 o'clock this morning. In a couple of minutes' time. That is what the courtroom looks like inside then And the key question mark is around just how many people will certainly be inside. One imagines out of support, as my colleague Michelle Craig has been saying all morning as well, that as media only allowed 2 people per media house as well inside the courtroom. One imagines the contingent of media would certainly be high, and then you still have support, you still have lawyers and the like, which will be very important in this case as well. We saw the front page of the Sowetan really speaking about how the leader of the EFF, Julius Malema, is looking here to try and dodge a bullet somewhat in an attempt to then ensure that he has these lawyers on standby to appeal this process no matter what it may be. But again, going to this court, this magistrate's court, to decide on the ability to appeal this. And if so, there's a high chance it goes then through to the High Court and any other higher court needed from that stage on. But then again, the big problem would be if he is indeed provided or given a sentence, how that impacts his political career if it is indeed beyond 12 months that the sentence that is handed down to him. So we're still a way to kind of hear more and to see the leader of the EFF indeed be in arrival today. EFF supporters, as you can tell, they're continuing to ramp up. There's a police contingent inside the courtroom as well, getting ready as things are prepared. Proceedings are prepared for the arrival then of Julius Malema, who was in the dock, of course, and this one continues here. Let's cross on over to my colleague then, Sipha Gema, who is also on the ground in Kukompo City, ahead of proceedings here. Sipha, what is it that you're hearing? We're going to continue to try and get my colleague Sipha Gema in just a moment. But as you can tell, just to translate a lot of what you've been hearing from the crowd there is Ilanga Lieza. The day will come. The day is coming. And perhaps the reckoning of a day in court where he will continue to fight this. The day when what the EFF leader and the EFF themselves presume is the day when justice in their eyes will certainly be served, and what that looks like. We've heard commentary, of course, from the EFF leader Julius Malema, continuing to say that he would fight this decision, this ruling, no matter what the sentence is that is eventually handed down through all of this. Again, let's remember, not everything will be put forward today. It is just the start of those proceedings. It is 2 days that we're expecting to hear with regards to these pre-sentencing proceedings that are said to come forward. We had initially earlier this year, already seen thousands of supporters gather outside the courtroom here. One imagines that thousands of these supporters had indeed traveled around with the president and the what they're calling the commander-in-chief of the EFF as he heads to these court proceedings, as they all were in support of him. Convicted in October last year on charges linked to the discharge of that firearm during the party's 5th anniversary rally that happened in Mdantsane in the Eastern Cape back in 2018. Let's turn on over to my colleague, Sipha Gema. Sipha, what is it that you're seeing and hearing from your vantage point?
Well, Arabile, outside the East London Magistrates Court, all you can see is just a sea of red and just a number of EFF members and supporters waiting for the EFF leader, Julius Malema. He is expected to make his way at the point where you're seeing that they have sort of made a passageway for the car to be able to drive in front of the court. That is where he's expected to come through. But of course, today, on today's proceedings, Arabile, just to start, they will, of course, start off with aggravation of sentencing and thereafter followed by mitigation. Now, part of the mitigation is to try and negotiate in terms of the sentence. And just to present to you what alternatives that was presented by the state to the defense and to the court instead of the 15-year maximum. There's just a number of alternatives that have been listed by the state. They're saying that the first one, of course, being the one that we know, a maximum sentence of 15 years imprisonment in light of the aggravating factors listed above, or alternatively, 10 years imprisonment on count 1, 3 years imprisonment on count 2, a fine of 50,000 or a fine of 50,000 or 12 months imprisonment on count 3. Fined 25,000 or 6 months imprisonment on count 4, and a fine of 25,000 or 6 months imprisonment on count 5. Remember, Malema faces 5 counts or 5 charges that were brought against him. There he is coming now, making his way as he is coming through. We've seen members of his family coming in, his wife coming in, as well as the top brass of the EFF coming in as well. Now he's just arrived, making his way in. I'm sure there, my colleague Nduduzo has his visuals coming, will have his visuals coming out of the car, and them, of course, greeting him. But just to Arabile end off with that mitigation or alternatives that have been presented by the state in terms of the sentencing. So just saying that the accused needs to also be declared unfit to possess a firearm. And they're also saying that the state does not oppose an order that the sentences in counts 2, 3, and 5 to run concurrently with the sentence imposed on count 1. Now, sentence imposed on count 1, what they were proposing was such a high sentence. So this is what we are here for, and we will hear. You can see the crowds now. They are seeing him coming out of the vehicle, Arabile, and they are going crazy, of course, in their support. I think my colleague Michelle has a better view of the arrival of the EFF leader inside the courtroom. Just to see also my colleague Nduduzo Shandu also there with his visuals showing the arrival of the EFF leader coming out of the vehicle, and supporters, of course, getting excited by seeing him. There he is going in to stand in front and, of course, wave at the EFF supporters as well.
Yeah, we're right here at the entrance of the Magistrates Court, and it was quite the scuffle trying to get in, and there is a bit of a scuffle there outside the Magistrates Court as well as people try to enter alongside Julius Malema. It's very, very difficult where we are. There's a lot of pushing, there's a lot of excitement. Police are, at least at the entrance, struggling to keep control of this crowd that's been pushing their way forward. But Julius Malema has now arrived here at court for proceedings that are set to begin at 9 o'clock. We're going to try and get you closer, get you a sense of what's unfolding here at the entrance to the court. It appears that it's someone who wants access to the court, but as we've been discussing all morning, access is tightly controlled today. Let's not forget that this court will also be dealing with just the usual issues, whether it's maintenance cases, any other case besides what's unfolding with Julius Malema, the leader of the EFF. So as it stands, the court has its usual number of people that will need to come to court for their own personal matters. And then, of course, this surge of a crowd here that's appearing in support of Julius Malema. And to that end, the court has put in place a two-person limit, for example, per media house. So one camera, I imagine, for broadcasters and one reporter, and that will change depending on whether you're with a print publication or with a radio or television broadcaster. So the numbers allowed in court, you need to have a wristband which allows you inside court. Other than that, the court will be closed to anyone else who does not have express permission from the court to be inside. It's quite a tight schedule that Julius Malema has kept. It's now 8:57 for a case that begins at 9 o'clock in